to NTD China News. I'm Karen Chang. Making headlines this Friday, April 5th. The Philippines hosts military drills with US amid China tensions. Should we be worried about the H7N9 bird flu? And outrage after a Chinese court detains a human rights lawyer. China has laid claim to a large part of the South China Sea, something the Philippines has been worried about. The US has also expressed concern over China's stance, and this week the US and the Philippines are holding their annual joint military drills with a newfound significance.
The U.S. and the Philippines started joint military exercises today with an opening ceremony in Manila.
I hereby declare the Philippines-United States Balikatan Exercises 2013 officially open.
While the drills are routine between the two allies, the U.S. has stepped up its armory in the region as part of its military pivot into Asia. While China's name was not mentioned, it is increasing assertiveness in the region, and this has caused some concern.
This year's Balikatan comes at a crucial time for my country and my region. For our region, excessive and exaggerated maritime and territorial claims have not only created uncertainty, but have undermined the rule of law.
China has sweeping claims to a large portion of the South China Sea, which includes territory in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. The Philippines has sought arbitration from the United Nations, but China has refused to take part.
Regional peace and stability have been placed at serious risk. For my country, we need to secure our borders and protect our territorial integrity more vigorously than we have before.
Once under the sovereignty of the U.S., the Philippines has become an ally, with the U.S. saying it will come to the aid of the Philippines in the event of any attack.
This extraordinary exercise and staple of our relationship as allies gets better every year, as we place such high value on our treaty obligations, our alliance, our partnership, and most importantly, our friendship.
The United States is also worried about recent threats from North Korea. The U.S. is deploying a dozen F/A-18 fighters and 3 naval vessels to the Philippines this week to take part in annual military drills. This is the first time it has sent so many aircrafts to the region. The bilateral military activities will involve 8,000 American and Filipino troops staging mock battles and simulating disaster responses over the next 12 days.
Both the media and governments have taken the new cases of China's bird flu virus very seriously. And while it is something that could be a serious threat, what is the probability it could turn into a pandemic? Here's more.
16 people in China have now come down with a new strain of the bird flu virus called H7N9. Countries in the region are taking steps in case of an epidemic, and a wet market in Hong Kong is culling its birds. One public health professor says he isn't too fazed about the intense global concern that H7N9 may cause a major outbreak.
So one thing we have now is this exquisite capacity to be aware of minor things that are happening all over the world, and to be aware almost in an instant. Does that make me more worried? No. Does it make it more likely that the apocalypse is about to happen? I don't think so.
By Friday afternoon, H7N9 has killed at least 6 people in China. The virus is not meant to infect humans, but the medical community is worried that the strain may mutate to be transmissible through humans. Chinese state-run media is being scrutinized closely to avoid another SARS-like cover-up that happened 10 years ago. Professor Al-Kabis says the media should be covering the outbreak and governments should prepare, but he says the hype around every new flu strain is not helping.
And so it's good to be thinking about that and making plans. And the difficult thing is to think about it and have professionals think about it and not worry excessively.
The last avian flu, H5N1, infected a little over 620 people and killed about 370 globally. On average, tens of thousands of people in the U.S. alone die every year from human-transmitted flu viruses. While the cases of infection are sad, Al-Kabis says people have learned from experience how to deal with them and does not expect another global epidemic. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
American scientists are working to develop a vaccine for the bird flu outbreak in China, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. As of Friday afternoon Beijing time, 6 people have died out of 16 confirmed cases of the H7N9 strain of bird flu. The CDC said in a statement on its website on Thursday that the agency is making a public health assessment of the disease and reviewing the need for new tests for the virus. Scientists are also, quote, developing a candidate vaccine virus for a future vaccine. The CDC said all these were routine measures taken when a new influenza virus is found in humans. There are still no reported cases of human-to-human transmission of the H7N9 virus. However, a person who had contact with a patient who died of the disease was in quarantine after showing flu-like symptoms, according to Chinese state-run media. A human rights lawyer in China has become the subject of a rescue mission himself. The Beijing-based lawyer took on a case that is considered very sensitive amongst China's legal profession. He tried to defend a persecuted Falun Gong practitioner on Wednesday and has since disappeared into court detention.
Chinese lawyers are outraged after a human rights defense attorney was detained by a court in Jiangsu province on Wednesday. Even as Chinese leaders promise to improve the rule of law in the country, legal experts say this latest suppression shows things are only getting worse for legal workers. Beijing-based lawyer Wang Quanzhang was representing a Falun Gong practitioner. When the Jinjiang City Court adjourned on Tuesday afternoon, he tried to take a photo of the proceedings as evidence. The judge told everyone else to leave the courtroom, and no one has seen Wang since. Now, more than 130 lawyers have signed a petition telling the court to release him.
Lawyers uphold the law and the legal rights of the defendant. If lawyers are suppressed like this and can be detained at will, then the rights of defendants will not be protected. So I say this represents a systematic decline in the legal system.
On Thursday, the court posted this statement on their website. It says Wang will be in detention for 10 days for, quote, disrupting court order. Legal experts say the rules around disrupting court order are vague and can be abused. Lawyers who have rushed to Jinjiang City to rally for Wang say he did nothing wrong.
If he did anything, the court is meant to have footage of the proceedings. They should make public this footage. We know there were a lot of people in the courtroom. Wang did not say or do anything inappropriate. We think this is retaliation against the lawyer.
And it may have been retaliation because Wang Quanzhang took on a taboo case. Since 1999, the Chinese Communist Party has persecuted Falun Gong. Lawyers around the country were instructed not to defend the hundreds of thousands of practitioners who were arbitrarily detained and tortured. Prominent human rights lawyer Gao Zhisheng was one of the first to take on these cases. He was then persecuted himself, charged with subversion, and now sits in a prison in remote Xinjiang. Wang Quanzhang's supporters say local media have not reported about his case. They're relying on the Twitter like Sina Weibo to voice their concerns and posting pictures of their efforts to get Xinjiang officials to release the human rights lawyer.
And coming up after the break, China is the second largest economy in the world, so why does it get billions of dollars in foreign aid? iPhone maker Apple takes down a Chinese app that sells books banned by the Chinese regime. And Shen Yun Performing Arts graces Portland, Oregon. And welcome back. China has seen breakneck growth over the past 3 decades, and a lot of it requires large amounts of natural resources from around the world. But as the Chinese economy slows down, Morgan Stanley Bank is warning it could impact on major global businesses like iron producers in Australia.
Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard arrived in Beijing today. She and a delegation are on a 6-day visit, hoping to expand on the two countries' trade relations and other ties. Australia's main export to China has been its mineral resources, largely to fuel China's expanding economy. But as China's economy slows, demand for resources is falling. And for Australia's iron industry, the downturn is being felt. iron is one key component for steel, which is used heavily in construction. But according to Morgan Stanley, there is a very real chance that there could be a supply surplus for the first time in at least a decade. The bank says while demand is falling, major iron producers have ramped up production. And this is pushing prices down. Since February, iron ore prices have fallen by around 14% to under $152 per ton. This has taken a bite out of Australia's two main mining companies, BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto. Both have seen a slump in share prices. Morgan Stanley believes that by 2014, there will be more iron produced than is needed, and the gap will grow wider from there.
The Chinese regime makes it a point to legitimize its rule with explosive growth over the past decade. But hidden behind that growth is billions of dollars in foreign aid given to China every year. And now some are wondering whether the country should be getting any foreign aid at all.
In 2008, China spent more than $40 billion on the Beijing Olympics. It also holds more than $1 trillion of foreign debt and has been investing heavily overseas through its state-owned companies. So many have wondered why the world's fastest-growing economy is getting $2.5 billion in foreign aid each year from countries like the U.S. who actually owe money to China. Most foreign aid to China is geared towards combating poverty, building infrastructure in rural areas, or aiding various human rights campaigns.
Well, I think there's a lot of poverty in China, and a large proportion of the world's population of poor people in the world are living in China. So I think that there are good cases to provide aid to countries like China.
Between 2001 and 2011, the U.S. gave China $310 million in aid. That is even when the wealthiest 70 delegates of the Chinese regime's National People's Congress are worth almost $90 billion, more than 11 times the net worth of the entire U.S. Congress. Officially, the U.S. aid is used to, quote, promote human rights, democracy, the rule of law, and environmental conservation in China and Tibet. Despite having a group of extremely wealthy people, China's per capita income is low. That's why it technically remains a developing nation under UN standards. As such, China is not only an aid recipient, but also gets concessions on international treaties. An example is the Kyoto Protocol. The treaty regulates greenhouse emissions, but China is exempt because of its developing nation status, so it's been able to freely burn almost as much coal as the rest of the world combined. 47% of the coal burned every year is burned in China. It's led to some of the worst pollution on the planet. So why do countries give China aid?
And I think that, countries like the UK, where I'm based, may be still interested in providing aid to China to enable them to have a dialogue around global challenges and global issues.
But that might be becoming a thing of the past. In March, the Canadian government said it would stop all aid to China by 2015. And inside the United States, calls are growing for the U.S. to do the same.
Apple Incorporated has pulled a book-selling application from its China app stores that gave users access to books banned by the Chinese Communist Party. According to the Financial Times, the app sold 10 titles by authors such as Chinese political activist Wang Lixiong, who has written about the fall of the Chinese regime, as well as China's repressive policies in Tibet. The app was developed by Hao Peiqiang and is called Jingdian Shucheng. Hao's app only gave access to 10 titles and is still available outside China on the App Store. Earlier this week, Apple CEO Tim Cook apologized to Chinese customers over faulty iPhone 4 and 4S models. Chinese state-run media pressured Apple for weeks to improve its warranty policy. Chinese iPhone users were frustrated that faulty iPhones were not completely replaced like they would be in the US. People who travel to New York often make it a point to see the wide array of theater and dance performances, while a New York-based classical Chinese dance company is bringing what it has to offer around the United States and the world. Next, we go to Portland, Oregon, where an artist said Shen Yun was absolute grace.
Sculptor Lolita Sale often goes to New York, and while there, likes to see everything that's showing in the world of theater. Tonight, she saw Shen Yun performing arts in Portland and was deeply moved. Her first impression was pure grace and elegance.
I thought it was pure grace. I thought it was divine. The women were divine feminine at its best. The men were strong. I also have a background in ballet. I go to New York a lot and see everything in the theater world, so I love dance. And I thought tonight was just beautiful, just exquisite. And the word that comes to mind is grace. It's just absolute grace.
She says the performers radiate joy.
Oh, pure joy, delight, really love for the heart, because the women, I always like that front row. I really see into the eyes of the actors and the dancers, and so I'm inside of them.
She adds that to her, it's obvious the performers put their hearts into the show.
Oh, just them, their souls, their love, their joy for what they're doing, and I saw them.
She says Shen Yun has a purifying effect on the mind.
And what I saw tonight was pure love. It's connecting human beings. Doesn't matter race, religion, color, anything. It's just, as we saw, the Buddhist monks and the others, we're all alike on the inside if we lead with our hearts. And that's what this evening was all about. And the beauty, when you combine the heart with the colors and the grace of the fabrics and the grace of the movements, it was heavenly.
Ms. Sale found the performance very touching.
I think it feeds the soul. In this day and age, in our culture of the world, there's so much violence, there's so much ugliness, that thank you. I want to thank you for bringing beauty. And if I talk any longer, I'm going to cry because it touches the heart. It really does.
Shen Yun continues touring across the U.S., opening in Beaver Creek, Colorado on April 7th.
And that's all we have time for this NTD China news. For more of our China-related content, visit our website at ntd.tv or subscribe to our YouTube channel, NTD on China. Coming up next is this week's episode of Discovering China. Stay tuned.